Marjorie Rieu is one of the most loved and successful artists on the planet.
Money, for me, is freedom. Freedom to do what I have in my mind, traveling the world with my own.
She built a global empire from the shadows for nearly 5 decades. Marjorie Rieu was the unseen engine behind Andre Rieu's rise to stardom, his wife, his writer, his manager, his fiercest protector. Together they conquered the classical world. But now she's saying goodbye. After a tragic turn in Andre's health, everything shifted. Behind the glamour, something broke. And as Andre celebrates 75 years with the world, Marjorie is quietly walking away. What happened to the woman who held it all together? All things started to unravel back in 2012. At the height of his global fame, Andre Rieu, the so-called king of the waltz, wasn't planning to slow down. He was packing arenas with his young Strauss orchestra, jetting between continents and juggling concerts, TV specials, and international media appearances without missing a beat. For decades, he seemed untouchable, no sick days, no delays, not even jet lag could keep him down. But in July 2010, something cracked. While on a holiday in Belgium with his wife Marjorie, Andre woke up at 3 a.m., and the world around him was spinning, not figuratively, literally. The ceiling twisted, the walls tilted, he felt like the floor had dropped out beneath him. He was drenched in sweat and overwhelmed by nausea, and he couldn't stand. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe it was just exhaustion. He had been pushing hard, cramming studio recordings, Spanish lessons, and last-minute tour prep into a single week. He even believed that staying happy and productive could keep illness at bay. But this wasn't something he could smile through. By morning, the dizziness hadn't gone away. Instead, it got worse. Doctors diagnosed him with vestibular neuritis, a viral infection that hits the inner ear and disrupts the vestibular nerve. That's the nerve responsible for balance. When it gets inflamed, the brain receives confusing signals, causing extreme vertigo, disorientation, and motion sickness. For Andre, it was devastating. He wasn't just dealing with a bit of dizziness. He couldn't walk in a straight line. He couldn't rehearse. He couldn't even hold his violin without feeling like the room was tilting. And here's where it got serious. He had a concert booked the following week in Amsterdam. Not a small performance, a sold-out show with 60,000 fans waiting. But this time, there was no miracle comeback. His doctor said the only treatment was rest. And that's when everything started to spiral, not just for Andre, but for Marjorie too. Marjorie Rieu isn't just his wife. She's the quiet force behind everything he does. A language teacher by trade and a trained composer in her own right, she's been married to Andre since 1975. That's over 4 decades of partnership, not just romantic but creative, logistical, and emotional. While Andre tours the world, Marjorie runs the business side of the empire. She writes. She manages. She protects his time and energy. But in 2010, there was no business plan for this. Andre had to cancel his Australian tour. Then he called off his UK performances. These weren't small local gigs, these were major stadium events with hundreds of jobs attached, lighting crews, orchestra members, stage managers, transportation teams. In total, 120 people relied on him for their salaries. His monthly overhead? Over £825,000, even before counting his personal earnings. So when he fell ill, it wasn't just a personal crisis. It was a full-blown economic storm. And Marjorie was at the eye of it. From their 15th-century castle in MRI, a place Andre had dreamed of owning since he was a child, Marjorie held things together. She kept the company afloat. She handled the communications. And most importantly, she made sure Andre focused on getting better, even when he wanted to power through the illness. Because he did try. He kept pushing, asking for medication, trying to walk, trying to practice. But nothing worked. His body refused. It was Marjorie who reminded him this wasn't a test of strength, but of survival. The irony? This came after years of Andre believing he was immune to burnout. He was so convinced that his mind could control his body, that positivity alone could shield him from collapse. But even the most passionate performer has limits. And this time, he hit his. For 3 straight months, he couldn't tour. He could barely get out of bed. He felt ashamed, like he was letting everyone down. He didn't even have energy to play with his grandchildren. At one point, he compared his constant sweating to having the menopause. He joked about it, but the truth was clear: this wasn't just an ear virus. It was a wake-up call. Tests. He went in for a brain scan to rule out a tumor. The scans came back clear, but the recovery was still brutal. There were no pills, no miracle treatments, just balance retraining, physical therapy, and a set of tedious but necessary exercises: standing on one leg, tracing figure 8s with his feet, moving his eyes side to side, up and down. Every day, 3 times a day, for half an hour. Slowly, painfully, it worked. But even as Endre started to recover physically, the emotional toll didn't lift. The fear of a relapse hovered over everything. Vestibular neuritis has a relapse rate of about 5%, and stress is one of the biggest triggers. So Endre had to rethink everything, not just his schedule, but his life. And that's where Marjorie came in again. She helped him draw up 2 lists. One list was everything he loved about his work: playing music, performing concerts, recording albums. The other, everything that drained him: meetings, business negotiations, speaking engagements, press events, running operations. The second list was much longer. So together, they cut it. They stripped his calendar. They shifted his priorities. They decided that from now on, he'd only focus on music and let Marjorie shield him from the rest. That decision wasn't just about workload, it was about survival. Endre may have seemed invincible on stage, but Marjorie knew better. She saw him at his weakest, sweating through fever, fumbling for balance, feeling embarrassed just walking to the bathroom. And she stood beside him, making sure the world never saw how close it came to breaking him. Their partnership was never about being flashy. Marjorie rarely joins him at concerts or in public appearances. In fact, she once said she didn't want to be defined by being Marjorie Rieu's wife. She has her own identity, her own work, her own mind. But in moments like this, you see the strength behind the scenes. Together, they raised 2 sons. Today, they have 5 grandchildren. By 2013, Endre was back on the very castle where Endre once took recovered faster than doctors predicted. And through all the fame, exercises, all the chaos, the therapy, all the music, and the lifestyle and changes helped Marjorie has kept one foot on the ground. But the fear never fully left. Started spinning. And for Marjorie, the role changed. She wasn't just supporting a touring musician anymore, she was watching the man she loved face his limits and doing everything she could to protect him from reaching that breaking point again. So when fans see Endre today, smiling, waltzing, leading a 60-member orchestra, they don't always know what it costs to keep that dream alive. And they definitely don't see the woman who helped hold the pieces together when it all started to fall apart. But Marjorie does. Because that was just the beginning. And in 2017, Endre faced a new wake-up call, one that forced him to look even deeper at his health, his choices, and what really mattered most. This time, the pressure didn't come from a virus or a cancelled tour. It came from within. After the second major health scare in just a few years, Endre realized something had to change permanently. Touring non-stop, managing a 60-piece orchestra, overseeing production logistics, and keeping a global fan base happy, it all added up fast. His body was waving the white flag. And this time, he listened. That's when he brought in reinforcements, a personal trainer, a new diet plan, and a fresh routine focused on strength, stamina, and serious rest. This wasn't a vanity move, it was survival. He started working out regularly, not just to keep up with his orchestra's demanding pace, but to make sure he didn't fall off the stage. Literally. His trainer adjusted his meals, monitored his movement, and helped him rebuild from the inside out. And the results were impossible to ignore. He felt better, slept deeper, and moved faster. But it didn't stop there. His orchestra, inspired by their leader, jumped in too. Soon, the entire Johann Strauss orchestra was on board. You had musicians booking time in hotel gyms, organizing Zumba classes, and even signing up for marathons during tours. The backstage vibe changed. Health became part of the routine, not an afterthought. And if you're wondering how a guy in his 70s keeps up with shows that run from 8 p.m. to midnight across multiple time zones for 5 or 6 days straight, this is how: rest, discipline, and the support of a team that follows his lead. Andre keeps his circle tight. He carries family photos inside his violin case. His sons text him pictures of his grandkids before every concert. He wears his wedding ring on a chain, not on his finger, to avoid accidents on stage. These aren't just rituals, they're anchors. When you're flying between cities and pouring your heart out under stage lights, small reminders of home can keep you grounded. And speaking of home, that castle in Marseille, it's more than just a symbol of success. It's where Marjorie waits, watching every performance from the sidelines, away from the cameras. She doesn't need to be in the spotlight to make an impact. For over 40 years, she's shaped every move from behind the scenes, writing his biography, helping him structure concerts, managing logistics, and keeping him focused on what really matters. Their relationship still runs on the same energy that first pulled them together in the 70s. She was a language teacher in Nijmegen. He was the boy she met at his sister Sinterklaas party. When they reconnected years later, they didn't waste time. They fell fast. But not everyone was on board. Andre's parents weren't sure Marjorie was the right fit. Her flower power spirit clashed with their strict expectations. Still, they pushed forward. Both came from disciplined homes. Both were raised to work hard. That drive became the foundation of everything they built. By 1978, Andre had joined the Lindbergh Symphony Orchestra and was playing in Gemma Serpent's Salon group. Around the same time, Marjorie found out she was pregnant. They were juggling family, teaching, music, and hustling for gigs in retirement homes. To say things were hectic would be an understatement. But they didn't stop. Marjorie helped write the talking points between songs. She organized brochures. She stood in event booths to book shows. At one point, they were playing free concerts for a few dozen people in small halls, all while dreaming of theaters and world tours. When the big break came, thanks to their 1994 album Strauss & Company and the viral hit The Second Waltz, it wasn't luck. It was years of building, brick by brick. Still, not everything was smooth. That 2008 replica of Schönbrunn Palace nearly bankrupted them. Marjorie had sleepless nights watching the money pour out faster than it came in. But she stayed calm, calculated, and careful. Their son Pierre eventually joined the operation and added another layer of business sense to balance out Andre's artistic passion. Even today, she keeps her distance from fame. No new photos. No public interviews unless necessary. She travels under her maiden name and avoids being recognized. That's not shyness, it's intention. While Andre becomes more public with every tour, Marjorie pulls back, creating a balance that lets both of them breathe. At home, Andre's pace has slowed. He cooks dinner, organic meals, carefully planned. They spend quiet time in their favorite spot, the orangery, designed by Andre himself. This indoor garden is filled with exotic plants, colorful butterflies, and koi fish gliding under Tuscan-style murals. It's his retreat after the chaos of touring. And it's where they reset before the next big adventure. But how did Andre build such unstoppable drive? Who taught him to bet everything on his dream, even when the odds were stacked against him? That answer goes all the way back to one man. The Jewish father-in-law who shaped his mindset. And maybe the real secret behind Marjorie Rieu's success. Edgar Koman wasn't famous. He didn't stand on stages or hold a baton. But his presence lived in every note Andre played. Edgar was a Holocaust survivor. His father escaped Berlin in 1932, heading for Marseille to find safety. 2 years later, the rest of the family followed. Edgar went into hiding during the war, and then came Edgar's by a Dutch girl named Nelly, who later became his wife and Andre's mother in 1975. He didn't risk gain a partner. He stepped into a new the Dutch resistance and helped Jewish families stay alive. Edgar's most prized possession wasn't money or memorabilia. A letter from an Israeli family reached Andre, more than 300 thanking Nelly for saving their grandmother's life. That collection introduced Andre to a new rhythm, with him, a fresh not as a distant tale from the past, different side but as a reminder of the legacy his marriage had tied him to. Andre grew up surrounded by the classical giants, Bach, Beethoven, and Bruckner. But Edgar's records brought him into the world of operetta, 1920s melodies, and yes, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. For someone raised in a strict, formal musical household, it was like stepping into color for the first time. Endre didn't just listen, he absorbed it. That record collection became the foundation for the MII Salon Orchestra's first performances. It shaped the repertoire. It shaped the vibe. It even shaped the branding. The energy, the mix of fun and nostalgia, it all stemmed from Edgar's taste and Marjorie's early influence. Edgar's impact wasn't technical, it was emotional. He taught Endre to connect with the heart behind the sound. And decades later, that influence is still playing out, literally. At nearly every concert, Endre plays a version of Have a Nagila, the iconic klezmer piece. His 2010 performance of it is one of the most watched classical music videos online, sitting at over 14 million views on YouTube. That's not a coincidence. It's a tribute to Edgar, to history, to the resilience of people who built something new after everything was taken from them. Endre still carries that weight with pride. When he plays in Israel, the reaction is electric. Flags wave, crowds roar, and he answers with local songs like Jerusalem of Gold, weaving each culture into his global tour. He's performed in Tel Aviv since 2018, and each concert has felt more like a reunion than a show. Behind the scenes, Edgar's story continues to guide him. Endre knows where the family came from. He knows how close it all came to ending before it began. And that's exactly why he celebrates life, with music. The message is simple: keep dancing, keep dreaming, keep going. Even during lockdown, when stages were empty and concerts were cancelled, Endre stayed in motion. He baked cakes for his neighborhood. He compiled footage from past performances into a special virtual concert, Magical Mars Try. That event streamed from December 19th to January 3rd, allowing fans around the world to experience the emotion, the energy, and the nostalgia from home. He didn't slow down. In fact, he doubled down. By 2025, he's celebrating his 75th birthday with a worldwide cinema event, The Dream Continues. This isn't just a recap of his greatest hits, it's a front-row ticket to a legacy. From New York to Vienna, from Bahrain to Sydney, Endre curates a journey through his favorite global performances. One highlight, a sweeping version of Music of the Night from The Phantom of the Opera. Another, a moving duet with his brother Robert as they sing Pai Jesu and reflect on childhood memories in Mars Try. Between numbers, Endre opens up, sharing stories, memories, and lessons from a life built on passion and persistence. And then there's Emma. Since 2024, she's been touring the world with Endre and the Johann Strauss Orchestra. She's visited Mexico, Chile, Bahrain, Colombia, and more. Her presence on stage signals something important: Endre's story keeps expanding. He isn't looking to slow down. He's bringing in new voices, new faces, and keeping the tradition alive through collaboration. And when you think about the scale of it all, how a boy from Mars Try with a second-hand violin became one of the best-selling classical artists in the world, you start to see the full picture. A man raised in a strict tradition. A young couple scraping together concerts in retirement homes. A dream fueled by vinyl records and wartime survival. A career spanning continents, generations, and genres. It all comes back to that quiet influence, the one who never stood in the spotlight but made sure it was always shining. Edgar Coleman helped shape the heart behind the music. And Marjorie carried it forward, weaving her father's legacy into every decision, every arrangement, every tour. So when Marjorie steps back today, saying goodbye to the spotlight, the tour buses, the long nights backstage, it's not because she's finished. It's because she's done her part. The world sees Endre. But she built the foundation. She carried the dream when it was barely a spark. And now, as Endre plays for sold-out crowds in Sydney, Vienna, and Tel Aviv, Marjorie watches from a quiet corner, knowing every note carries their story. From war-torn Berlin to packed stadiums on 5 continents. This journey didn't begin with fame. It began with love. Records. Resilience. And the kind of support that never asks for credit. Share your thoughts down in comments and do subscribe our channel.